I want everyone to feel seen and heard and represented. I think it's so important to see yourself in social media, see yourself in greeting cards, see yourself in media in general. I think it can make a big difference in people's lives if they feel represented.
Hey, my feel good friends. Oh man, this week I'm so excited to share with you our guest, Madison. She is actually my social map student, and she is one of the original biggest fans of the Feel Good Social podcast. I still remember almost a year ago, this week probably actually, Madison reached out to me on Instagram and shared one of the Feel Good Social podcast episodes to her Instagram stories, and she was one of the first listeners to do so, and it made me feel so good, motivated, and just like everything I was doing was worth it, and that I was reaching the people that I wanted to reach and spreading the message that I wanted to spread. So that said, fast forwarding one whole year, Madison actually signed up for my social map course this past year. We've just created this connection and this friendship, and I cannot wait to share her with you today. This woman is amazing. She has so much to say about, oh man, just so many things. And truly, I just love her soul. You will see, my friend. So I can't wait to share this interview with you. Hey friend, and welcome to the Feel Good Social Podcast. I'm your host, Kinsey, and I'm here to help you market your business in a genuine way that works without wasting your precious time. On this show, we chat about social media strategy and mindset tips with a focus on, you guessed it, feeling good. So sit back, relax, and enjoy some genuine conversation for the good of your biz. Have you been struggling to hone in on your brand's vibe on social media? I created a free new guide just for you, my friend. I hear it all the time. My photos aren't flowing together. My graphics look weird. My captions all sound different. I get it, and I'm here to help. With this free worksheet, you'll clarify who your brand is on social media. I'll walk you through the steps to figuring out your brand's story, what your brand sounds like, and what your brand looks like, so you can show up consistently with beautiful posts and build your followers' trust. Whether you've been complaining about your grid not being cohesive or your captions all sounding off, this brand vibe worksheet will help. Just head to feelgoodsocial.com/brand vibe to get this free guide. That's feelgoodsocial.com/brandvibe, and you'll be on your way to branding clarity. All right, let's dive into today's episode. Hi, Madison. Thank you so much for joining us, lady. I'm so glad to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me, Kinsey. I'm really excited to be here.
Yes. Well, I already did introduce you a little bit in the intro, but I'd love to hear from you. Who are you? What do you do? And who do you serve?
Well, I'm a Coloradan like you. Well, a new one. I moved here with my wife and our two pups, Bentley and Lily, June of 2019. And shortly after that, I started Dear Queer Cards in October of that year. That's only last year. It seems like a long time ago. But the idea had kind of been a long time coming. I've wanted to run a design-based business, since I was in high school. It's always been my dream, but I never quite got a clear vision of what that was supposed to be, how I could best serve others through my dream. Until one day, near our wedding, which was November 2018, my sister called. She was like, "You have to make LGBTQ cards. You have to. Like, there's a market here that's missing." And she was right. It was just like a light bulb in my head. And I knew that was it, that's what I could do to help make a difference and fulfill my dream at the same time. So it kind of started the ball rolling, and my brain was running wild as it does with ideas and what to do. And my favorite part about starting Dear Queer was how I developed the name and the logo. And it's such a fun story. I woke up in the middle of the night one night, and it just came to me, dear queer. It was just like in my head. I literally got out of bed, sat at our couch and with the coffee table pulled up to the couch with my computer and designed the logo. And I was up all night, and my wife got up in the morning, normal, like 6, 7 a.m. She's like, what are you doing? And so I showed her the logo and the design, and she's like, wow, that's awesome. Like, that's so exciting. And it's just funny because for me, I'm a night owl. So it wasn't really that unexpected to find me having sat up all night with my computer, but it's just like, when you have an idea, you got to run with it.
Yeah. I feel like, I don't know, that's how all of the best ideas come to me.
Right?
And I don't know, do you ever feel like this? Sometimes I'm like, I feel this idea coming, but like I can't quite get, it's not here yet, but like I know, like, and it's really bad when you have like a deadline or something. I'm like, the idea is coming. I know I need to turn this in tomorrow, but it's coming.
Yeah.
Do you ever feel like that?
And you're just like, it's almost there.
Yeah. So I'd love to know like how you kind of got into the graphic design. I know you said high school, but I was on the yearbook in high school, and that's kind of how I started with the whole graphic design stuff. Design editor was my title.
Yeah. I took like a Photoshop class in high school, and that's kind of how I got into it originally. And then I actually majored in graphic design at Appalachian State, which is where I went to college in North Carolina. And I've worked in the field, I've worked out of the field, but I've always wanted to have my own business. And so that's how we got here. But yeah, so I majored in it, and I've always been into it, and it's always been a passion of mine, no matter whether I'm working in it or I'm just doing it on the side.
Yeah. And I love that you have fun with your designs too. Like your cards crack me up sometimes. I'm just scrolling. I'm like, yes, this is wonderful. um, so I'd love to just talk to you a little bit about maybe some of the struggles that come with entrepreneurship, because I know we've all experienced them, and just maybe how you've kind of worked through some of those.
Yeah. So, as an LGBTQ entrepreneur, I've definitely run into hateful and derogatory comments online. And I think the biggest struggle there is not the comments themselves, because, I can just let those roll off. It's how to deal with the comments. I find a real struggle deciding whether I should just dismiss them and not give them the time of day, versus the part of me that wants to try and offer them some education, offer them, just a different opinion outside of their own. But that often turns into this troll battle that just spirals and doesn't help anyone. So that's really where I struggle with those comments, is that trying to decide that fine line of dismissing it versus trying to educate and just trying to, share with people your experience so maybe you could change their opinion. I generally lean towards just dismissing them because, like I said, I don't want it to just turn into this war of comments that doesn't do any good.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man. It's so terrible, and it's so difficult. And, I'm over here, like, I've gone through, issues as entrepreneur, and entrepreneurship is hard, man. And like,
Yeah.
That on top of it, like having to deal with all of that stuff. And also it's exactly what you said. It's like, do I want to engage? Like, I feel like I've been doing some anti-racism work this year as well. And like, there's a difference between having a conversation with someone and trying to educate, and then also just like having a conversation with someone who's just straight up hateful and isn't going to listen. And that's really hard. And it's exhausting for you too. Like that takes time and energy for you.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely exhaustive. So I haven't had to deal with it too much recently, which is I'm very thankful for. But another thing I would say that I've struggled with is myself. Starting a business takes extreme courage and self-determination, and I have anxiety. And so trying to cope with that in terms of being an entrepreneur is something different that I haven't really dealt with before. And so it's like when you start a business, you have to jump in and just hope you can swim. And it's like, I want to, dip my toe in, see how the water is, but you can't succeed that way. You have to just go for it and believe in yourself. And so that's something that I continue to work on every day. And I'm so thankful to have people like you and my family and my friends and my wonderful wife who support me and encourage me and just drive me forward in my dream. And it's just so awesome to have this squad of people around me that kind of help lift me up, because sometimes I struggle to lift myself up.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, thank you for sharing that, lady. Because I know it's scary to be vulnerable and all those things. But I think it's so important because we all deal with that. I mean, I feel like a lot of my first year of entrepreneurship was literally like holding my breath and like just charging forward. You know what I mean? Just like I couldn't stop to think about all of my fears, because if I did, then I wouldn't keep going, And I do think you're so right. Like that's why I hire a mindset coach and a business coach. That's why I surround myself by awesome people like you as well. It's like, it's so nice to have support behind you because it like reminds you. But I don't know. I've been kind of trying to shift my mindset around this lately, but it is so easy. Like I have all these amazing people surrounding me. You have all these amazing people surrounding you, but it's easy to kind of focus on those negative comments. Do you have any anything that you do to kind of shift your mindset or help you keep pushing forward?
There's a couple things that I do. I definitely use design. So if I'm feeling overwhelmed or my mind is racing, I'll sit at my computer and designing cards or whatever it is I'm working on. Basically, it's like this different world for me where it absorbs me and I don't think about anything else, which obviously doesn't work for everyone because everyone's not designers. But I think having like a hobby or having an activity that you do that you really love is definitely something that I use a lot to kind of just clear my mind so I can kind of reset. I also like to do breathing exercises. I have a smartwatch like many of us, and it just has a little breathe button and it vibrates when I'm supposed to breathe. And so just taking a few minutes for yourself, whether it's breathing or just standing outside or, I don't know, sitting. I'm weird. I like to sit on the floor. So just like laying on the floor and staring at the ceiling. I think just taking the time to take a few minutes to yourself to kind of reset is so important to stop the negative thoughts, because I've definitely been there and it's a spiral effect and it just down and down and down.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, I love all those tips because I totally relate to the graphic design thing too. Like sometimes I'm like, I have things to do, but like I'm just going to sit over here and draw this doodle that I'm never going to use or show anyone or anything. And like, it is so helpful to like take your mind off things. I love that you said laying on the floor. I also do that. I'm like, I don't know what it is about staring at the ceiling, but all of a sudden I get distracted by like, oh, there's a crack up there. Like, right. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like, oh, look, we got some paint on the ceiling.
Oh, wow, this looks weird. Wait, have you taken the Enneagram test?
I feel like I started it and never finished it.
Okay. Girl, to-do list. No, I'm just kidding.
No, I have a friend who's really into it. She like sent it to us and I feel like I started it and didn't finish it, but I think I always see like the different posts and I think it's really interesting.
Yeah, I know. It took me a while to get into it. I was like, I don't know. I think I took the test, but then I was reading the answers and I was like, I mean, this sounds like me, but whatever. I don't know. And then I did that interview. I don't know if you listened to the Enneagram episode. I couldn't even pull the number of it off the top of my head, but Harmony kind of like walked me through it. And I was like, oh, wow, this is great now,
I don't think I've listened to that one. I'm going to have to listen to it.
Yeah, it's fun. It's kind of one of those like, I don't know. Like, it's so funny looking at podcast episodes because you're like, okay, this is the most downloaded one, like the most popular. But then, like, there's the ones that people talk about that they reach out to me that they're like, hey, like, this was a great episode. Like, thank you so much for this. And then there's like kind of the cult podcast episode, where you know what I mean? And that's the harmony of the Enneagram one. It's like people who are into it.
Right. Yeah.
Oh man, lady, I love this. And also, exactly, I'm kind of glad that you brought up the whole, entrepreneurship is hard in general, but this year, especially, like all the anxiety this year. And then there's always stuff happening behind the scenes too. You know what I mean? You have stuff dealing with, I have stuff dealing with this year. And I think that a lot of us are hard on ourselves for not being as productive as normal. You know what I mean? That was one of my lessons this year. It's like, we're allowed to take a break and it's okay. And you need to.
Yeah, I definitely have struggled with that this year. There's been a lot going on in the background. In a matter of 6 weeks, my grandmother passed away. My mom was hospitalized. She's doing fine, thank God. And my uncle passed away. So like I struggled, and I didn't want to do anything. And it's just, you have to give yourself grace. You can't just beat yourself up for not being productive. Life happens. Things are going on that you can't change, that you can't stop. And so you just have to go with the flow and take it easy on yourself, because it's so, it's so hard because you have all these plans and you have all these goals and you want to be productive, but you have to go at the pace that your mind and your body is telling you can go at.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. It's been a difficult enough year anyway. And then like with all those back end things, it's almost like the universe like slapping you in the face a little bit. Being like, slow down, I'm so sorry you had to deal with that this year. Let's change the topic a little bit to graphic design, because I know that that's something that a lot of people struggle with when it comes to social media, you know what I mean? And kind of how to just create visuals that look good. A lot of people, I find this so often, like we get a logo done or even the whole branding package done for us, but then you're like, okay, I still don't know the design. How do I translate this to social media? So I'd love to know like any of your kind of favorite tips when it comes to being designy and stuff.
Yeah. I love Canva. I think it's a great tool, especially for people who don't feel like they're graphic design inclined, because it's so easy to just, click what you want. And they have so many photos and graphics, and you can edit everything the way you want it to look. I use it a lot and I really enjoy it. And I kind of use a mixture of what I design and what Canva has to offer to create social media posts. But I definitely think for someone who is like, I don't do graphic design, that you can use Canva and make really beautiful posts and design things to look the way you want them to look. That's my really big one that I use most often. I don't do a ton of photo editing. It's just not something I ever really got into. So yeah, that would be my biggest recommendation. And just have fun. I mean, people are worried about perfection, and I definitely fall into that category because I am a designer and I want it to be perfect, but people aren't looking for perfection. They're just looking for genuine vulnerability and you being yourself. So my other recommendation is just have fun, just do what feels fun. It doesn't have to be perfect.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, I love that. Firstly, I mean, Canva is just like the most amazing tool for designers and non-designers alike, right? And also, exactly, if you don't feel designy, there's so many templates on there that are so awesome. And yeah, I totally struggle with the perfectionism things too. It's like tweaking here, tweaking there. And sometimes I think it's this fear of wanting like wanting to come across as like professional, wanting to come across as like perfect. But then also I think it's sometimes like procrastinating a little bit, like I don't want to be doing this other thing. So I'm just going to tweak this thing for an hour.
Yeah, for sure.
How do you kind of like get yourself out of that or move past it?
I definitely have to tell myself sometimes that, okay, you've been looking at this for an hour and it's not really changing that much. You need to leave it alone. But it's just, trying to keep myself in check. Like, okay, you're doing this, but do you have other stuff to do? I use checklists a lot. I love paper. I'm obsessed with paper. So I write everything down, which is not very millennial of me, but I love a good list. So I write things down, and that's really how I kind of keep myself on track. So, I'll be in the middle of a design and just like very involved in it. But I try every now and then to like pull myself out and look at my list and look at what the other things that I want to accomplish for the week or the day to keep myself on track. But it's definitely a rabbit hole with design. Like, I could sit at my computer or on my phone for hours playing with designs and tweaking like the littlest thing. And I, look at my wife like, okay, but what about this? Or what about this? And she's like, what's different about those?
Oh my God. I just saw like a photographer yesterday put up a photo like, which edit do you like best? And I swear I spent 15 minutes like swiping back and forth between the two photos. I'm like, these look exactly the same. And then I read the caption and she's like, one's a little grainier than the other. I was like, what? You could not tell on social media. I'm sorry. But I mean, hey, that was a good strategy for keeping me on our
right.
Those ADD people are just like, okay, wait, what?
Right.
Wait, I have to know.
What is it? It's like those pictures where you have to find the difference.
Yeah, and there's no difference. That would be me getting caught up in one of those. Oh yes. Oh yes, for sure. Do you ever also I run into this so much where I have two very different designs of pretty much the same thing and I can't choose which one I like better. Do you run into that?
Yes, I definitely run into that. And that's when I use like my family members, my friends, like to kind of help me weigh out which one they like better. And then I can see, which kind of reads better, but that's definitely something that I do. I have, I'll have like 2 or 3 designs. I'm like, which one? And I could just stare at them all day. And so I kind of lean on the people in my life to help me, like, just pick one. I don't want to pick one. I can't pick one. I've been staring at them for hours. And
did you ever, when you like kind of first, I guess design has been such a big part of your life for a long time now, but whenever I first started designing, I was even kind of like scared to show my boyfriend and my family my designs. Did you run into that at all?
I definitely did. Design can be something that's so personal. It's, hard to show people. And I've definitely struggled with constructive criticism. I think it's so important. But, when I was in high school and even in college, I took it really personally and I didn't use it as constructive. I just took it as criticism. So it was really hard for me to show people my designs. And, even in class, like having to turn stuff in, it's a vulnerability. You're putting your design and you're asking someone to judge it, basically. And that's so hard. And it's definitely been a long process of, these people aren't trying to tear you down. They're trying to help you. And so you have to learn from what they're saying. And it's not against you. It's just to help you grow. And I think that's a really hard lesson to learn. And I definitely struggled. And there are still some constructive criticism that just hit me. And I have to remind myself that this is for the better of your design and your growth as a designer. So
yeah, yes, totally. It's so funny. I'm like, yes, I know exactly what you mean. And it's a process. And I do think that like with practice almost of like hearing like the criticism again and again, it gets like a little bit easier, but also like it depends on what my mindset is that day, I think, too.
That
Like
for
if I'm
sure.
if I'm in like a vulnerable place, I'm like, I can't hear criticism. But then sometimes, I've been like, I can take it. It's great. And also, it's so funny too. I think when it comes to design, I work with a movie theater who during COVID had to completely like innovate,
Right.
and so they came up with this like pop-up barbecue stand idea, and I actually designed a logo for them
Oh,
fairly quickly.
cool.
Yeah, and I had been working. I do like designy stuff on the side for him a lot, but it was fun. But like the first design, he was like telling me, I just want like old school barbecue look and whatever. And I was like, okay, I came up with the design, and I like was excited, and I sent it to him, and he's like, I don't like it. Like, and then I was like, what? And my first reaction was like, oh my gosh. And then I like looked at it and I was like, yeah, that is shitty. Wow. Because I was taking a step away from it, and came back to it. I was like, okay, yeah, wow. I can't believe I even sent you that. I was just like so excited in the moment designing.
I've definitely experienced that where you spend, a lot of time on this and then the person's just like, nah, can we completely scrap it? And you're just like, but then, like you said, you look at it and you're like, oh, yeah, this could use some work because you get tunnel vision when you're working on it and you're like, oh, this is so great. And then you don't take the time to kind of step back and look at it. So then you send it to the client and they're like,
Yes. And I love that the conversation has gone here as well, because this is something that I totally apply to social media and like even social media captions too. I mean, this year especially, there's been a lot of emotions going on.
yeah.
And I've had like some of my clients come to me and be like, I've written this post, like, and it just like flowed from me, but I don't know if I want to post it. And I was just like, okay, step away from the post, walk away 15 minutes, half a day, whatever, come back to it when you're feeling more level headed, not as fired up, not as whatever you're feeling, and just look at it objectively. And then that's when you can kind of like switch it around, change things, make it more like understandable. I've had that happen. My captions are like, this is the best caption ever because I'm fired up about something, and then I walk away and come back. I'm like, oh yeah, let's tidy this one up. You know what I mean? Or if you're being like vulnerable, or if you're being a little unreasonable, sometimes that can happen.
Yeah, I definitely think that's so true. You have to step away. Earlier this year, with all the social justice and Black Lives Matter stuff going on, I felt compelled to kind of share, but I didn't want to be insensitive and I didn't know how it would go over. So I actually asked my friend to read it and tell me if it offended her, if it, what kind of emotions it brought from her. And that was really helpful. And she really appreciated that I would use her as a resource like that. So I think it's so important, like you said, to step back, because you could just be speaking crazy because you're all, like excited or you're all riled up, and you have to kind of give it a minute to settle to make sure, you're saying things the way you want to say them.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's a time and a place, I think, for like just word vomiting, but I don't think it's on Instagram.
Yeah.
I love that we kind of brought it here as well, because I do think like the Black Lives Matter movement has been so interesting to deal with as like an entrepreneur, as a human, all those things, like how to kind of approach hard things and like be forced to put yourself out there, but also know that you're probably going to do it wrong, and all of those things. And as, like a member of the LGBTQ community, do you feel like there's like similarities and parallels between kind of how to approach like social justice issues or like the anti-racism stuff and like your community's movement right now as well?
Yeah, I think there is. I think something that's really important to realize, and that, I spent a lot of time thinking about, is that even as an LGBTQ member, I experience privilege. Mm-hmm. And there are different layers of privilege and different layers of struggle that people go through based on how they look, how they identify, things like that. And so, I think it's so important when approaching these social justice issues to really take a moment and read, to educate yourself. Education is so, so important on these issues, because you want to know what you're talking about before you talk about it. And I think to kind of better be able to stand up for and speak out for these issues, you need to engross yourself a little bit in them and in the history of them and just learn. I can't say enough about continually educating yourself on these issues so that you know where you stand on them and you know how to stand up for them. And I think definitely with Black Lives Matters, as a white person, I've tried to be careful about how I approach it because I want to be supportive and I want to speak out because I really feel called to do that, but I don't want to be in the wrong in my privilege. And I don't want to, step on any toes or say the wrong things. And I think it's really hard to know what to say because you want to say the right things and you want to be supportive, but you have to navigate that. And, I've just tried to read and learn and talk to people so that I can be helpful in the movement.
For sure. Yeah. That it's a lesson in having to take, what's the kind of phrase that people toss around? It's like imperfect action.
Yeah.
And that is so hard for so many of us as humans, as entrepreneurs, all the things, wanting to show up and have all your shit together and do it. And it's just, I think that it's just like treading lightly and then just genuinely caring. And I think it's an internal thing to start, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So many people, wanted to hop on the bandwagon, I feel like, and stuff like that. And I think you're right. It has to do with like yourself and you taking the initiative to learn before you can like expand it outwards and stuff.
Yeah, I think it's so important because, in social media and Instagram, we're all just reposting and resharing things. But if you don't know or understand the sentiment behind what you're sharing, it lacks the message, I think. You don't want to just be resharing something to reshare it. You want to be doing it because you know and understand it and have something to say about it.
Yeah. Yeah. And honestly, too, I mean, just, me and my entrepreneur brain. I'm like just bringing like this back to like, that's why having like brand values, knowing what those brand values are and your position on things and just like promoting that in your business is so important. Not only does it like bring a bigger fire within yourself so you show up in a better way, but also it helps your community to kind of stand behind your brand because they believe in you. And then the connection is so much better and you just ultimately, hopefully, make the world a better place. Right?
Exactly. And I think that's something I've been, focusing on this year is that how can I use my cards and my business to speak out for those social justice issues? And, for me, it's about representation. I want everyone to feel represented in my cards, and that's one of the main reasons that I started my business is because LGBTQ people didn't have representation in greeting cards. And, you could find some at the store, you could find some online, but it just wasn't enough. And so I wanted to bring more so that everyone can be seen in their cards. It was really evident to me how hard they were to find when I got married. We got tons of wonderful cards, but there were maybe 2 or 3 that were specific for Mrs. and Mrs. And, I want everyone to feel seen and heard and represented. I think it's so important to see yourself in social media, see yourself in greeting cards, see yourself in media in general. I think it can make a big difference in people's lives if they feel represented.
Yes. Yes. Oh, lady, that is like makes my heart feel so happy. Because I love it. And I just love, that we've connected. And I just love having you in my community. And I'm so glad that we've connected. I love cheering on people who I believe in, you know what I mean? And your cards are so amazing for sure. I would love to just chat a little bit about social media. I feel like for so many of these interviews, I get through like 30 minutes and I'm like, oh yeah, this is a social media marketing podcast. Maybe we should talk about that a little bit. So what has been kind of your journey on social media? Is there anything that you really like love to do, or you kind of have seen some good results from, or stuff that we should avoid doing?
Yeah, so social media has definitely been a journey. I'm almost 30 now, so my first social media experience was MySpace. Funny story, my mom made a deal with me that I could get my second piercings in my ears if I didn't get a MySpace. So I took that deal, but what she didn't know is that I already had a MySpace that my friend had made for me.
Oh
So
my God.
what a little
Awesome.
punk I was. But, so just starting it with MySpace and just going through the journey of social media has been an experience in itself. I think that I've used it a lot over the years for kind of an emotional outlet, when you're a teenager and you just, when Facebook first came out, my feelings are, you're just like spewing them out. And they come up in your memories and you're like, why did you share that? Why did you say that?
Yeah.
So it's definitely been an evolution. And I mean, I would say I still use it as an emotional outlet, but I find it to be a tool for connection is, I think its greatest use. And as someone who's lived in 4 states and has family all over, it's definitely come in handy that way. But using it as an entrepreneur has been a completely different experience, which I knew nothing about. And truly still, I'm getting better, but I still feel kind of lost in it. I had no idea how useful it could be and how many tools are out there. And your social map class actually opened my mind to that. I have this issue where I try to reinvent the wheel sometimes. And you don't need to do that. I mean, they all, Instagram is the one I use mainly, but it has all this insight information and it shows you who, what posts are doing well and who likes what. And, it's been a journey trying to figure out how to utilize those and make those work for me so that I have to do less work. My business for me is still a side hustle. I have a full-time job that I love, but that means that my time is short, and we all have that struggle of, trying to manage our time, but, knowing how to properly use social media as a marketing tool makes a huge difference in my time and how I use my time. And I think that I still have so much to learn. But one of my big tips, I would say, about social media is just be vulnerable. People are over the point of seeing perfection. And I know you've done a podcast on this and I loved that podcast, but you just have to be real. Like I said earlier about representation, people want to see themselves in social media. They don't want to see perfection. They're tired of it. There's so much pressure to live up to that perfection. You just need real life. You need to see other people struggling, see other people celebrating, see their messy laundry room behind them, as Kinsey can see right now. It's just like, be real, be authentic. And that's scary. It is opening up yourself to the world, which is can be full of hate. You just have to have faith that the people you surround yourself with are there to lift you up and not tear you down. And they need to hear what you're saying just as much as you need to share it. So I think that connection is a huge, huge thing. Something that I've been working on, and you mentioned again in your social map class, which I just love, you talk about connecting. And I have been really putting time into that by, commenting on other people's posts, sharing other people's posts. Things like that are so important. We expect as entrepreneurs that people are going to comment on our post and share it and do all these things that we want them to do. But if they don't see you doing that, why would they want to do that for you? And I think it's so important that you engage yourself in social media to show people that you're interested and that you want to make a connection so that they connect back with you. You can't expect them to do something that you're not willing to do.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, everything you just said was so inspiring. It just made me so happy. And I love that. It's true. It is so true. It's a reciprocal relationship. And if you can develop reciprocal relationships with your ideal customers, it doesn't have to be a lot even. Like, I think I interviewed Shelby, another social member, for the podcast. I think it's actually coming out next week at the time that we're recording this. And we were talking about this as well, how like a bigger following isn't necessarily better. Like I'd almost rather have a smaller following of people who I know, who you can make feel special and valued and heard. And that does so much more to drive that deeper connection, to just make you feel better about yourself as like this is so good. And also like that truly helps to cultivate that kind of know, like, and trust factor, that brand loyalty, where those people are going to remember you and they're going to recommend you and stuff, like with your cards. It's such a wonderful niche too, because it's like, of course, everyone is looking for cards like that. And so there's going to be multiple weddings. They're going to be coming back to you again and again for whatever. She doesn't just do wedding cards. But, it's like, they will also, like, if someone else within their community is looking for an awesome card to send, they'll recommend you as well,
Yeah, I think, that connection, like you said, it's better to have followers you really connect with and who really, like you said, have brand loyalty than to have a bajillion followers who could kind of give or take you.
And one of my favorite things, this is like the moment when my entire business kind of clicked for me, is that I don't geek out. I like get giddy whenever I talk about this, is because I am not a huge fan of how people use social media for like disconnected ways, or like the vanity metrics and all those things. I want to feel good about it. I want to drive real connection, like we've just been talking about, but also that is the best way to use the platform in the most strategic way as well. Creating content around your values, connecting with people, and real engagements and stuff, that's really going to help with the algorithm as well. So like on both sides of the spectrum.
Right. It drives you forward either way, you're connecting and then they're connecting, and then you show up more on Instagram because you have more connections.
Yep. I love it. Oh, Madison, I've so enjoyed chatting with you. Can you please share where people can connect with you, find out more about you, and also tell us about your awesome, fun freebie for feel gooders, feel good listeners? Because I still want to.
Yes. So you can find Dear Queer Cards on Instagram at Dear Queer Cards, on Facebook, Dear Queer Cards, and then at my website, which is also dearqueercards.com. So very across the board, easy to remember, which is good because I forget things a lot. But for our podcast listeners, I'm very excited to share that if you use the code Feel Good Social, you can get $5 off any purchase of $20 or more on my website. So go get some fun cards, and we'll be excited to have you.
Yay. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for joining us, lady. I've so enjoyed chatting with you. How wonderful was Madison, you guys? I absolutely love this woman. She is just so inspiring to me, honestly. And I just have such a soft spot in my heart as one of the first feel-good listeners who reached out to me. So definitely check her out. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you share it, tag both of us on Instagram so that we can see and spread the love right back to you. I hope you have an awesome day, my friend, and I'll catch you on Thursday for our mini-sode. Thank Thanks so much for listening, my friend. For show notes and a whole lot of other awesome freebies, visit feelgoodsocial.com. Simply go to feelgoodsocial.com for all the goods.